Alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Essentially, these are our bonus slides. First of all, cognitive behavioral therapy, understanding thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. This is a method that can be used after trauma. What we want here is to rewrite the thoughts by identifying unhelpful thinking patterns shaped by trauma. And we want to reduce self-blame and shame, strengthen agency and clarity. Common trauma-related cognitive distortions include such categories, and here are the examples as well. Self-blame, for example, it was my fault. Hindsight bias, where you start thinking now in this present moment about your past and think that you should have known, which you couldn't have. Generalization, overgeneralization, I can't trust anyone. Just because one person could not be trusted doesn't mean that nobody can be trusted. Catastrophizing, if I set boundaries, I'll be rejected. Where a person, this is an interesting example, but there are other examples too. Like you might believe that if you are still in an abusive situation, you might think that if you leave, the whole world is going to end, your whole life is over. What are you going to do? This is catastrophizing. If you're always thinking about worst case scenarios, that's catastrophizing. I want to give a simple example, which is not related to abuse, but a student who fails a single exam during exam period thinks that their entire studies is over and they'll never get their diploma. This is catastrophizing because it's not realistic. You might have failed one exam and you might have to repeat it, and that might be very inconvenient, but it doesn't mean that you failed your entire career, especially. Catastrophizing is always exaggerating a future expectation. It's usually a threat. All or nothing thinking, I'm either strong or I'm broken. Just because there is a moment where you didn't feel strong, it doesn't mean that you're completely broken. It doesn't mean that you're completely weak. It just means that this moment was very difficult. It was difficult for me, but inshallah in the future, I might be able to handle something like this better. Inshallah, I will find my way. Inshallah, I prove to myself that I'm strong in other areas or that I can become stronger. Depends on the situation. I don't want to give too many examples because it does really depend on the situation. The therapeutic shift, we go from judgment to understanding. Let's understand. From blame to context and compassion. Let's understand the circumstances and then show compassion to those circumstances and ourselves. This is what I could do in that moment in time. And I accept that. And this is where inner child work, some people might have heard of it, can come in handy. If you can imagine, let's say that a person was hurt very much when they were in their 20s and now they're 40. They're still angry at themselves and blame themselves. When I was 20 and somebody beat me up on the street, I just froze and I didn't fight back. This is not an example of abuse. This is an example of violence, just to be clear, based on Orshi's presentation. You understand that by now. But you still blame yourself at 40. What you need to understand is 20-year-old you at that moment in time was very shocked and surprised. Poor guy, he couldn't do anything. And it's okay. It's okay. Imagine meeting yourself when you were 20 and just give yourself a hug. I wish I could have been there for you and help. Or imagine fighting back if that helps. So this is where inner child work comes in as well, and also imagining any other therapeutic methods where imagination is used. This can be the KIP method, this can be hypnotherapy, and others. It can be that, so basically you imagine your younger version of yourself. If you're in your 20s now, maybe your 10-year-old you could definitely not have protected himself or herself. She didn't even know what on earth was going on around her sometimes. It's okay. You're just a child. Don't worry about it. But if you imagine your 10-year-old self and understand that, sure, what? That's all that she could do at the time. And then you give yourself a hug and forgive it and move on and don't be angry at yourself. So these are compassion. This is about past trauma or abuse. Again, if there was an abusive situation that happened to you a year ago and it was very recent, and again, I hope you're already going to therapy for it, but in that case also, at that moment, in that time, I was ready to handle the situation to a specific level. According to that level, I handled it. You did a good job. And I think that's what people don't say to themselves enough. Nobody says that to them. You did a great job, so don't worry. Okay, the next part, CBT reframing. And my screen is frozen. Okay, CBT reframing. So what can happen? We take an unhelpful thought like, I allowed this to happen. And we reframe it. I responded based on what I knew and needed to survive at the time. Unhelpful thought. My reaction means I'm weak. The reframed thought. My reaction, these reactions were trauma responses. They're not character flaws. How we react in a difficult situation does not actually define us. There are some situations that you might be very good at handling. And let's go back to a very basic, everyday example. If you go into work, there could be a bunch of tasks and you already know what kind of tasks you would prefer to do because you're better at those. And what are the tasks that you don't prefer to do because they're harder to handle. When it comes to difficult life situations, this is the same. Some of us are better at certain things than others. And we're better at certain things than other things anyhow. So the point is that this was a trauma response in a very, very pressurized moment. This is what you could do, and it's all right, and it's not a flaw, even if you were not able to do something that now you believe you should have been able to do. Try not to expect from your past self to be your present self. And who knows, if even in this present moment, we could do the thing that we would expect ourselves in the past to do. Because it was clearly hard for us then. So you understand my point. Obviously, I'm not talking about the case here where you were a child back then. And inshallah, that's the point, that if you go through therapy, which is focusing on your trauma and trying to heal. By the way, this therapy does not start with you go to a therapist that you don't even know and then you relate to them your whole story about what happened to you. Not at all. You just start with a smaller conversation like, how are you? What's your name? What happened generally in your life? I grew up in the suburbs and I went to school and I had a good friend, but then we fought a lot, but then we were good friends up to the day. And then I went to high school and then that was difficult because of the exams. And then I graduated though, and then I went to uni and I really loved it because I met a lot of friends, and then whatever it is. And slowly you will get into the more difficult aspects. But trauma therapy is not like flooding you with information or the negative memories and feelings related to your trauma. So don't be afraid to just try to sit down with a therapist. Even just going there the one time to try it is a good thing. You don't even have to go back. Just try it. Maybe you will like it and you want to go back. And if you don't, nobody's forcing you, so it's okay. So I know a lot of people have a lot of fears when it comes to going to therapists. So far, the therapists that I've met, well, therapists I'm working with in this project are amazing. So I'm sure anybody going to ask for them for help, they'll be very happy to do so. Very blessed.